Welcome to this video all about my shoe rotation as I train for the Richmond Marathon. Do you see how many shoes I'm holding? Yeah, I've rotated through a lot of these and I want to go over why I like some, why I like others, and why I just made a quick change and just bought a new pair. We have a lot to talk about. So I've been training for the Richmond Marathon since I would say like June. I started building my base. Before that I worked on zone 2 heart rate training just to get my aerobic base down, and I'm obviously running way more miles than I'm used to since this is my first marathon. I think I'm about 35-ish miles in each week right now. Actually, I think it's a little bit more than that, but my marathon's in, I think it's 5.5 weeks at this point, a little less than 6. But I have so many shoes and I have not been injured this training cycle at all, but I have found that I am very aware of how my body feels in certain shoes, especially if it's a longer run. So my favorite brands are Hoka's, New Balance, and Saucony's, but with those different brands, I have found that some shoes are amazing to my foot and other shoes aren't. So certain things that I'm looking at before I even buy the shoe, because I just have so many freaking shoes. Certain things that I look at, heel drop is really important. I don't want to switch from a Brooks shoe that has a 12mm drop to a Hoka shoe the next day that has a 4mm drop without my body getting used to it. So that's really important for me. I have tried Ultras, by the way. They did not work for my foot. I did not like them, so I just walk in them. And I walk around barefoot majority of the day. So I would say the biggest thing is look at your heel drop before you're thinking about getting a new shoe. Because your body needs time to adapt. A lower heel drop, you're going to be using your Achilles more, and a higher heel drop, so like a 12mm, 10mm, 8mm, is going to put a little bit more force or load through your knee. Not a lot, but just a little bit more. Like it just changes. It's like, think about it. If you're wearing high heels versus if you're wearing flats, you can tell that your gait's a little bit different. You can also tell your knees might feel a little different as you're walking. So that's the biggest thing. Look at the heel drop. The other thing that I look at is the weight of the shoe. I am shocked at how heavy some of these shoes are. Like this New Balance shoe is actually very heavy. The Hoka Cliftons are the lightest shoe I've ever felt. And a lot of these shoes just feel bulky, and I wouldn't even notice that until I've done longer runs that are like longer than 2 hours. Like even around that 2.5 hour mark, it's like, okay, why do my feet feel so heavy? And it could be because the weight of the shoe. So when I'm looking for like a training shoe or even like thinking about my race shoe, I am definitely thinking about the weight of the shoe. The other thing I want to comment on is these carbon plated shoes. So these are the On Cloud Booms, I believe, and I have a flat foot, and these are the most narrow shoe I've ever run in, which means I have only run in these shoes for about a month. I ran in them when I did, like in the beginning of my training cycle, I did speed workouts where it was like sprint for a minute, sprint for 2 minutes, like sprinting, and then pull back like, 6 rounds, 8 rounds. That's the only time I use this shoe because I cannot run in it for more than like 5-6 miles because it's just too narrow, which is really upsetting. The other thing that's upsetting, these laces are like, no other shoe has these laces. These are the wildest laces. They're like slippery and thin, and my shoe always comes untied, which, like, if you're doing a speed workout, if you're just running, you don't want your shoe to come untied, and it would come untied every time I would use them, which just got really annoying. So I kind of kicked these to the curb once I started increasing my speed intervals to more like 2 to 3 minutes on, maybe 30 seconds off, and then to like 1 or 2 miles on, and then like 5 minutes off. So I kind of like have kicked those to the curb for a while. My long run shoe right now is the Hoka Clifton. Now these babies are the best. Like if you find, my biggest like I guess, thing that I've learned with all these shoes, because I'm like, I want to try them. Maybe I just didn't break them in long enough. But the biggest thing I've learned is if you like a shoe, stick with it. If you like a brand, stick with it. I don't care if there's a new shoe on the market. If you like a shoe and you found a shoe that works for your body, stick with it. I went through this like total crisis last Saturday because a week or two ago, my mom put in my head that my shoes looked worn out and I should probably get new ones before my race. And I was like, no, they're fine. They're fine. And then last Saturday I ran 12 and I was like, nope, these are dead. Like, they're so dead. And I looked and I knew they were dead because it's like, well, what does that feel like? It just feels like they're not as comfortable. It feels like they're a little bit more like stiff almost, like the cushion's gone. I can tell a big difference when my shoes are dead because I usually rotate between 3 or 4 shoes each throughout the week, and a lot of my shoes are newer or like not as old as my long run shoe. So when I'm using these shoes, I'm like, oh, that feels good, like the cushion feels good. And then when I compare it to this and I go on my long run, I'm like, no, these are dead. So it's a lot of it's comparison. I don't have Strava or Garmin, so I know you can track the miles with each shoe on like your Strava account or Garmin, but I don't have either. And I really like to go off how it feels too. So I looked at the tread's like gone too. So I had to get new shoes. So luckily I ordered these from Running Warehouse like Monday or Sunday. They just came in 2 days later. Talk about the best thing ever. So now I have 3 days to break them in before my 18-mile run, which I think I can do because I've used them before. It's just more so like breaking in the shoe, but this is definitely going to be my race shoe. It works for my body. It has a wider toe box compared to like this Saucony shoe. It definitely has a wider toe box because my foot's flat, and as you run more on it, the blood flow is going to be going more in your, or the blood's going to be staying more in your feet. There's going to be swelling. So it's always good to have a wider toe box when you're racing or just being on your feet for a long period of time. So these are my wonderful race shoes. I'm excited. Let's talk about the Saucony Triumph because I have loved the Tempest. They're old, they're dead, but I love the Tempest. So I got the Triumph because so many people told me that this was like the best shoe, the best racing shoe. And now that I look at it, actually, I know exactly why it didn't work for me. I have run in this shoe probably 4 or 5 times. I've walked in them and they are comfortable. When you first put them on, 10mm drop, they are comfortable. They look good too. But my foot was, to make sure I don't cuss, my foot was going numb, and it wasn't like a nerve pain. It was just like pins and needles, like you hit your funny bone, pins and needles. And then my foot would get super hot, and like if you've ever had your foot feeling hot when you're running, like it is not comfortable. You're like, get this shoe off of me. So I had thought about trying this for my racing shoe, but I ran my recovery run in them, and I think it was not even mile 3. I called my boyfriend. I was like, put these other shoes on the front porch because I have to take these off. But I'm thinking that they didn't work. I always size up half a size from like a normal shoe size. So they're the same size shoe as my other Sauconys too, but I'm thinking they did not work. Yeah, they're definitely. The toe box is a lot more narrow than any other Sauconys that I've had because I have these rides and they worked great, but definitely compared to the Hokas, I mean, you can see that the toe box is a lot more narrow, and if the toe box is narrow, your toes aren't going to be able to move like they should. You're pinching them together, and it's probably what caused the numbness. It's probably what caused my foot to get hot and uncomfortable. So those shoes are out the window. The other shoe, so I no longer have those shoes in rotation. The other shoe that I have in rotation that I like is the New Balance. Now these are the Fresh Foams. They come out soon. 1080s. I don't even know. 1080. I think they're just pronounced 1080s. Fresh Foam X. These are very comfortable. I really like these shoes. They're great for a weekly, like midweek, medium, long run. They're good for an easy run. I don't love them for a speed workout because they are very cushiony. I mean, you can see they like soft cushiony to the point where you don't feel like you can propel yourself forward as much because of the cushion. But for a medium long run and for just like a recovery run, these shoes have been great. I've gotten some wear tear on them, but they're still fairly new. So I will link these below because these are very comfortable, especially if you like New Balance shoes. Check those out. The other New Balance shoe that I like, surprisingly, is this Fuel Cell Propel. And I will wear these usually my recovery run actually. And these are very comfortable. I will say a lot of the New Balance shoes, I don't have the other ones, but a lot of the New Balance shoes, if I compare them to Saucony or compared to Hoka, New Balance feels very soft compared to those other brands. So this is the first New Balance shoe that I've had where there's definitely more stability versus like that softness, cushion. So your heel doesn't, your foot doesn't feel like it's sinking in. So I actually really like the shoe. Great budget friendly shoe. I think it's $109. So I mean, most shoes are like $160, $170 at this point. So I really do like the shoe. I also want to point out I have flat feet. I think I already said that, but I am definitely picky about my shoes now with them being like too cushioned or too stiff, too heavy. So this is another shoe that I have in my rotation. This tends to be my speed workout shoe recently, especially since my speed days are more run 2 miles faster, slow down for 5 minutes, run 2 miles faster. So they're like longer speed workouts. So these are the Asics Gel Cumulus. They're very light. They have a pretty wide toe box too. And I like them because they get the job done. They're cushiony, they're not too cushiony. I think they're pretty similar to these New Balances, but these New Balances are definitely heavier. These Asics are light. And I used to run in Asics all the time, but I stopped because they started making their shoes so narrow, and then now it's a lot wider. So I definitely like this shoe. It's in my rotation. And then the only other two shoes that I will sometimes rotate in and out are my Brooks shoes. I have gotten a little bit away from Brooks. I always like the Ghosts. Like the Ghosts are always just like a great shoe. So I'll rotate these in more than the Adrenaline. I'm finding that just by comparing my foot in these other shoes, the Adrenalines don't feel as comfortable. They don't feel as cushiony compared to the Ghost or compared to the Asics. I think that it just depends on your foot. It always depends on your foot. It also depends on what you're comparing what shoe you're comparing your foot in, because I'm used to like my Hokas, which are super comfortable, super lightweight, and if I compare my Adrenaline, like there's not even a comparison. But 3 years ago I ran my half marathon in my Adrenalines. It's all I wore. So I think it does just depend on what you're used to. But do note that the Adrenalines are a 12 millimeter heel drop, so definitely higher than Hoka's and all my other shoes. I believe the Brooks Ghost is the same, but great shoes. As always, go to a running store and find what works best for you. I think it's important to at least have two shoes to rotate between and make them similar heel drops if you can. They can be the same brand, but I wouldn't make them the exact same shoe, but just make them similar heel drops. I hope this was helpful. I could talk about shoes all day, but biggest thing, make sure it's comfortable for you. Make sure it doesn't give yourself blisters. And yeah, I have my marathon in a little less than 6 weeks, so I'll definitely do a video on how that training is going and my thoughts on that. But other than that, I hope you have a great day. I'll see you next time.